If you really want to understand the Middle East today, you have to look past the borders you see on a modern map. Because long before any of those lines were drawn, there was this single, sprawling region, a cultural and geographic world all its own, known as Bilad al-Sham.
So, where does that name come from, Bilad al-Sham? It literally means the left-hand region. Now, why? Well, picture this. You're in the Hijaz in Western Arabia, and you're facing the rising sun in the east. The entire region we're talking about, it's to your left. It's a name that comes right from the land itself, which is so different from, say, the European term, the Levant, which means the land of the rising sun. Totally different perspectives.
So let's just try a little thought experiment to get us started. What if the borders we know so well today, the lines separating Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine, what if they just weren't there? That question right there is the heart of what we're digging into. A unified organic past clashing with a modern, artificially divided present.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The foundation of this place wasn't some political treaty, it was the land itself. We're talking about a map literally drawn by nature. And you can really see it here. Bilad al-Sham was basically held in this giant natural container. Look, up north you've got the Taurus Mountains acting as this massive wall. To the west you have the Mediterranean, down south the endless Arabian Desert and the Sinai Peninsula, and then over to the east, the Euphrates River. These weren't just lines on a map. These were real physical barriers that shaped everything for thousands of years. And that's the thing, right? Geography really can be destiny. This unique position made the region a natural bridge connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe. That meant it was always, and I mean always, a strategic prize for empires. It was a crossroads for trade, a melting pot for culture. If you controlled Al-Sham, you basically controlled the highway for goods and ideas between the entire East and West.
Now, this shared geography did more than just define the land. It really shaped the people who lived there. It led to centuries and centuries of shared rule, which slowly forged this common identity across the whole area.
And what's so wild when you look at this is just the sheer amount of time we're talking about. I mean, under the Umayyads, Damascus wasn't just some regional city. It was the capital of a global empire that stretched all the way from Spain to India. Later, the Abbasids had their own system, but the really big one, the one that shaped the modern era, was the long, stable reign of the Ottoman Empire, which ran the whole show through these provinces they called vilayets.
400. Think about that. For 400 years under the Ottomans, this was a world with almost no borders. Imagine being a merchant in Aleppo. You could do business down in Jerusalem, go visit your cousins in Amman, and then head home, all without ever needing a passport. You'd be speaking a similar Shami dialect, eating the same kinds of food. It was all one big, shared world.
And then, it all just fell apart. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and this place that had been unified for centuries was suddenly, dramatically fractured. This was the moment that new lines were drawn, not by geography, but literally in the sand by foreign powers. And this is where you can really see the two realities just colliding. On one side, you've got Bilad al-Sham, this organic entity defined by its natural geography and a shared culture. And on the other, you've got the Sykes-Picot reality, artificial lines drawn by Britain and France that just sliced right through ancient trade routes, split up communities, and carved the whole region into pieces. This whole situation created what experts call a state-to-nation imbalance. It's a really important idea. Basically, outside powers created these states before the people living there had really developed a corresponding national identity. Before they thought of themselves as Syrian or Jordanian. And this imbalance created decades of instability, with people trying to figure out how their ancient, shared Shami identity fit into these new artificial countries.
But here's the thing. You can't just erase centuries of shared culture with a line on a map. It doesn't work that way. So the question becomes, how does that unified past manage to survive in today's divided world?
Well, it survives in what you could call the cultural silk of Al-Sham, this invisible thread that still connects everyone. It's in the food, right? Hummus and kibbeh, they taste like home whether you're in Damascus or Beirut. It's in the way people talk, that specific Lahja Shamia dialect that everyone understands. You can see it in the architecture of the old cities, and you can hear it in the music. It's a culture that just flows right over modern borders. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean? I think the story of Bilad al-Sham is just this incredibly powerful reminder that political borders, those lines drawn by people with maps, they're often temporary. But geography and culture, those are the deep, permanent forces that just keep shaping a place long after the ink on any treaty has dried.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. When you look at all the conflict and division in the region today, you have to wonder, can a shared past ever truly overcome a divided present? That tension between the memory of unity and the reality of fragmentation, that is the story of Bilad al-Sham.